Hello, today we're talking about Parasyte the Maxim and its relations to critiques around altruism. Parasyte the Maxim was directed by Kenichi Shimizu and aired from October 2014 until March 2015 from Madhouse Studio. It was based on the manga Parasyte written by Hitoshi Iwaki that came out between 1989 until 1995. Both the anime and the manga followed the same plotline with similar character development and are under the same science fiction genre with a subcategory of body/biological horror. They differ, however, on their execution of the body/biological horror genre itself. While the manga uses the distortion of human body to set up grotesque illustrations that perplex and disturb the reader, the anime opts for intense fight scenes with non-diegetic dubstep to entice the viewer. The plot of Parasyte the Maxim follows high school senior Shinichi Azumi in Tokyo, Japan, with his parasite Migi. It started as parasites with worm-like structures and drill-based heads came to Earth one night. The main goal of these parasites was to find a human host, drill itself into said host, and make its way to the brain. Once it reached the brain, it would consume it along with the head and perfectly replace it with itself. One of the parasites attacked Azumi by burrowing itself into his hand. Azumi reacted quickly by applying a tourniquet in the form of headphones and stopping the parasite's progress up his arm. This led to the parasite consuming and replacing Azumi's right arm and hand, naming itself Migi after the Japanese word for right. The rest of the anime follows Azumi dealing with his parasite Migi and their interactions with other parasites in Japan. While Azumi and Migi fall under the definition for mutualistic parasitic behavior, Migi constantly reminds Azumi that everything he is doing is for his own survival and self-interest. This is also prevalent in other parasites that Azumi and Migi come across in Tokyo and the surrounding areas. The anime portrays that altruistic behaviors and acts do not exist, that everything a person may do is fueled by some sort of personal gain. To understand the critiques of altruism, one needs to first understand what altruism is. The definition is when a person acts to help someone else at the cost or risk of one's own life. This idea originated from French philosopher Auguste Comte to describe his ethical doctrine that was released in the early 1850s. While ideal altruism is possible in a utopian society, it has many flaws that philosophers have pointed out throughout history. The general critique of altruism is that any behavior can be linked to some form of personal gain, whether it be physical or moral. Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, thought that for a person to be altruistic, he or she would need to treat others with more important than one's own life, which is degrading and demeaning to oneself. Ayn Rand stated that altruistic acts have been performed in the past for a person to feel morally superior to others. These critiques of altruism can unfortunately be applied to people like Mother Teresa. While her acts to help the poor seem selfless as she gives up a life of prosperity, she can be motivated by increasing her morality in order to get into heaven. In Parasyte the Maxim, Migi is a staunch critic of altruism, and not only does he state that he acts in his own self-interest, but he does not understand why Azumi wants to help others. Migi's self-centeredness goes even further, as in one scene when a parasite is hunting Azumi, Mr. A, and the high school, Migi's logical mind states that using the students around them as bloody obstacles for Mr. A. The idea is that the students would camouflage Azumi and give them an upper hand in fighting the other parasite. Izumi is in disbelief of what Migi says and immediately goes to a quiet place in order to fight Mr. A. Later in the series, Izumi and Migi meet Ja, a parasite attached to a character named Uda. Ja has similar critiques around altruism as Migi, and they start communicating on what happened to Ja and Uda. When Ja attacked Uda in his worm form, Uda fell into the ocean and began to drown. While traveling to Uda's brain, Ja realized that his human cannot breathe, and if his human dies, Ja does as well. To prevent this, Ja consumes and takes over Uda's respiratory system. He then extends his mouth to the ocean's surface for Uda to breathe. While this is a virtuous act, both Ja and Migi discuss how horrible it feels to not get to the brain, and how irritating it is to be part of the human host. Both are only interested in their own survival and not to the world. The reason they help out their host is for self-preservation and no other reason. Migi and Jaw can be considered the opposite of altruism. They only want to survive and gain knowledge. Even when they do acts that seem selfless, like putting themselves in harm's way to save their host, it has a meaning of their own. They only do these acts to preserve themselves and make sure they survive. They don't care if their host died. If they were possible to detach from their host and survive outside their host, then they would do so and easily let their host die behind them. In one of the final episodes of Parasyte the Maxim, episode 23 out of 24, Izumi and Migi go to battle Gato. Gato is an amalgamation of 5 different parasites occupying the same body. The 5 different parasites occupying the same body allows Gato to be extraordinarily tough with only one weak point at the lower part of his back. Izumi extorts this by stabbing in a garbage-covered rod that acts as an infection. The infection causes the parasites in the body to flee in order to escape and survive on their own. This causes Gato to explode into multiple pieces with only a skeleton remaining. While looking over the body, Migi and Izumi realize that Gato is trying to reform as small parts of the parasite go towards the skeleton. Izumi then ponders over the reforming body of Gato. He thinks that people have become the real parasites of the world, killing the world while giving nothing back to it. He thinks that parasites like Gato could kill more humans and allow the world to be a better place, even though Gato would come and try to kill Izumi again. Migi then talks to Izumi and tells him not to do it for anybody else and just do it for himself. Izumi quickly realizes that Migi is correct and finishes off Gato. In the end, Izumi goes against altruism, something that most protagonists try to go for in both anime and other films. He realizes the best decision may be to be a selfish one and to do what he wants. Parasyte the Maxim goes against altruism and states that not all good acts need to be selfless, that you could do selfish acts with good possible outcomes that affect not only you, but the people around you in positive ways. If you would like to learn more around the critiques of altruism, Jeff McMahon, a professor of moral philosophy at the Oxford University, has an amazing article that talks about the critiques of altruism based on multiple different sources. It's a meta-analysis of all the critiques of altruism that are significant, both economically and philosophically. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed watching my video.